Hi, I'm Megan, working with horticulture.co.uk, and today I'm going to be showing you how to propagate Sarracenia. In this video, I'll be showing off two different methods of propagating Sarracenia. The first one is seed sowing, which can either be from purchased seed or even seed that you have pollinated, harvested and would like to sow of your own. And eventually, once you sow these seeds, it will form little miniature versions of the plant, and based on the parentage of the seed plant that you got it from, you can get infinite possibilities in the shape, forms and colours of your plant. And obviously you could get some really unique little seedlings from them, which eventually produce some really nice mature plants. So this is one of my hand selected plants. This is a Leucophylla cross Morii, which I sowed from seed about 5 years ago now. It's obviously produced quite a nice chunky rhizome, and it's quite a nice stocky plant, obviously with a nice frilled lid. I do quite like the white triangular pictures from it. And that is one that I have obviously selected, as well as this really nice dark almost black Sarracenia, which again was another hand pollinated seedling. And the second method I'll be showing you is rhizome cuttings, and as it suggests, it is simply where you cut usually the tail end of a rhizome, plant it, and eventually you'll produce an exact clone of the plants that you have taken the cutting from, and eventually it will look something like this. So there's the original rhizome, and it produces a little plantlet out the side of it, which obviously could then grow quite quickly and form a really nice plant of the exact copy of the one you originally took. First up, I'm going to show you how to sow Sarracenia from seed. Sarracenia seed requires a cold, wet stratification period. This is a period of cold that is required through the winter in order to break down the waxy coating of the seed for it to germinate successfully. This can be done by simply sowing the seed in winter and having the natural winter cold break down that outer coating. This means that the seed can be sown in an unheated greenhouse, cold frame, outside, or very similar where it's going to get the winter cold. The other method of doing this is by sowing the seed onto damp kitchen roll, putting it in a Ziploc bag and putting it in the fridge for around 4 to 6 weeks. This will also allow you to get a head start if you allow the 4 to 6 weeks at the beginning of winter and then sowing it before the springtime, sowing it inside, leaving it in a nice sunny place, allowing it to germinate, and eventually bringing it outside once the weather has stopped having any periods of frost. Either way is quite easy to do. I prefer simply sowing it straight into the greenhouse, as there is less hassle and it's quite easy to sow dry rather than it is when it's been in the kitchen roll, but it's up to you and based on what conditions you have for the seed. Okay, now to sow the seed. So far this year I have sown most of my Sarracenia seed on Argentinian sphagnum moss, which then I have cut up finely in order to create an even layer to sow the seed. This is obviously harder to see the cream coloured Sarracenia seeds on, so for this example I will be showing you with the standard peat and perlite mix, which is a little bit easier to see where you're sowing the seed. Once the seed germinates, which is typically around March-April time when there is no more risk of frost and the weather has started to warm up, you will start to see two little true cotyledon leaves, which are the first two leaves that the plant produces. And then when it produces its first true leaf, it will be a tiny picture. So a tiny version of the picture, which you can see here. These are almost 1-year-old seedlings, which I sowed last year. And you can see the tiny little miniature pictures it's got. And then here I've got 2-year-old seedlings, which as you can see are a bit bigger. And these are now ready to prick out into their own pots. So I typically sow my seed into a 7cm square pot, and I simply start by filling the pot all the way to the top. I press it down slightly as well because when you water it, it will often sink. So you don't want to compact it too much, but you just want to do it enough so when you water it, it's not going to be so obviously low down when you obviously water it and it sinks. Something like that. Make sure it's a nice even surface. And then now you're going to use a watering can with a rose to water this. Once your pot is fully saturated, you can sow the seeds. So the seeds that I have selected to sow today are my Sarracenia Night Sky crossed with Sarracenia Leucophylla burgundy. So these are two plants that I had hand pollinated myself and harvested in September. And now I'm going to sow the seeds. So these are really nice parent plants. So the Night Sky is a lovely dark Sarracenia with like white windows or white spots on it. And then the Sarracenia Leucophila burgundy is a pink and white Sarracenia. So both really nice parent plants, and obviously hybridised together should create something really nice. So I'm going to start with just by spraying like a pinch of seeds onto my hand. So I've got about a pinch here. Obviously I like to tip it out into one hand and sow with another hand, so then I can control how much I'm putting in a pot, as this might be too much, might not be enough. So it just kind of gives you a rough guide. So I'm simply going to pinch the seed with one hand and sow it evenly. So try to distribute it as evenly as possible and not just in one clump. And obviously it's a very similar method to just sowing any seed. So I think this is a perfect amount that I've got here. And just obviously make sure to try and fill each of the gaps like so. And that is literally it to the seed sowing process. Next I will then write out a label with the parent plants on one side and the date on another side, and then place that in the pot like so. So it's already been watered, so you don't need to water it again, as this will obviously dislodge the seeds. You're then going to place it in your cold position. So for me, I will leave it in my unheated greenhouse for the rest of winter, and then come March, April time, I should start to see germination after the cold period through the winter time. Okay, next I'm going to be showing you how to take a rhizome cutting. So this is typically done in winter just before spring, similar to seed sowing. And it's typically done when you repot the plants, as you can often repot the plant and take a rhizome cutting at the same time, which is what I plan to do here. So here I have got my Sarracenia flava burgundy, so different to the Leucophila burgundy, which I just had a parent of the seed sown. This one is a nice flava, which has like a burgundy tint, like a reddy colour to the picture. And as you can see from the shape of the pot, it is starting to bulge, meaning it needs a repot. This plant has got about 3 growths and quite a long rhizome, so I'm hoping I will be able to take a rhizome cutting from it. So similar to the repotting, you are going to squeeze it out of its pot, and there you go. You can see it's really lovely roots that it's got going there. The rhizome, which obviously was pressing up against the pot. And once again, you're going to remove all the moss and soil around it, like so. Okay, once you've removed all the soil and the roots are loose, you can make out where the rhizome is. So with this one, the rhizome ends here, which is the hard piece that obviously goes along. So you've got the lighter colour here, and then this stems out into the tail of the rhizome, and this is what you'll be looking at taking. So obviously it can be quite hard to see, but you can easily feel it with your fingers, as it will be the hard piece at the back. And this is the piece that I'm going to be taking. So this may or may not have roots. At the moment you can see that this definitely does have roots on. You're going to take a pair of secateurs or snips, and then you are going to be cutting probably about 1 inch to 2 inches off the back of it. So I'm going to go around here and simply make an incision like that. And you can see a nice healthy rhizome by the coloration of it. If it was brown or mushy, then this would be no good and the back of the tail end would have died. But as you can see, this is a lovely white colour, which means it's nice and healthy, and it's got quite a nice root system attached to it as well. And obviously looking back at the main rhizome, obviously which is still got the plant attached to, is also nice, healthy as well. With this you could also even take obviously divisions off of it by the side root bits, but I probably will just pop this back up into a 1 litre now that its tail is shorter and it'll have more room to obviously fit into a pot. But obviously concentrating on the root cutting, you are probably going to be planting this in a 7cm pot as well. Despite the root system, you can also do a 9cm. I like to do my rhizome cuttings in smaller pots just to save space. And obviously once it then starts growing, I will then place it into a larger pot. Okay, so I've just put up the main plant, and I did decide to take that side division off and pot that up separately. So now I've got these 2 plants, and I've also cleaned up the rhizome cutting a bit just to take the main dirt from the old pot off onto it. And then we're now going to plant it up into the 7cm pot. and I'm going to use a generic peat and perlite mix as well, which is the same mix I use for the seed sowing. So similar to my potting method, you're going to place a bit of the media down the side, pop the rhizome cutting in. You're then going to hold it into place and put the compost around it, like so. Gently firming it down, but not too much to compact it as you go, because you want the rhizome to stick up a little bit like this. You don't want to bury the rhizome, you just want it so you can still see it, a little bit like you would when you're planting a main Sarracenia. Finish by placing it around the edge, like so. And that's kind of what you're left with, is your rhizome in the pot, like so. And you're then going to water it with the watering can with the rose over the top, let it soak up the water, and then you're going to leave it. So I leave mine again in an unheated greenhouse, so it doesn't matter about the cold, and they will then start sprouting new growth again about spring, summertime. Sometimes it works really quickly, sometimes you have to have a little bit more patience, and you'll see some strikes after several months after planting. Personally, I find Sarracenia one of the most rewarding plants to propagate from. The seed, although may be lengthy in time and requires a lot of patience until you get a nice full-grown plant, is one of the most rewarding things about growing carnivorous plants, especially from seed, as there can be so much variation between each of the seedlings that you produce, and sometimes you'll find something totally unique that is all yours and that you have grown yourself. Similarly, the rhizome cuttings are also a great quick way of producing some of your rare and favourite plants really quickly, and these are all tasks that can be done over the winter time.